Welcome back to the Leaner, Stronger, and Confident as Fuck podcast. On today's episode, we are talking about the art of balance. We're going to be diving into what it really means to achieve your goals while also living a balanced life, and how to ultimately find the right kind of balance that can actually move you forward in the way that you want to, instead of perhaps actually keeping you stuck. And this is something that tripped me up for quite a long time, because maybe you can resonate with this yourself. I spent many years in the past trying every extreme diet, jumping from fad to fad, and really kind of going in full-on restrict mode, trying to achieve my goals. And it wasn't sustainable. So then I was like, right, okay, well, I need to kind of be a bit more balanced in how I achieve my goals. And ultimately, that was a very positive shift. But then I started going really too far the other way, trying to be so balanced, trying to be so flexible, to avoid extremes and avoid restraint at all costs, that I also ended up staying stuck because I wasn't achieving my goals, because I was so focused on being balanced all the time. So we're going to dive into how to kind of find that place where you can still move forward, but you're not burning out as well. And the different ways to see balance in a way that can actually help you grow and feel really good in the process too. Before we dive into that, I also just wanted to share a little update of my photo shoot prep. So I have been doing these as separate episodes, the Level Up series, if you want to go back on the podcast and hear exactly what's been going on in the first 5 weeks that I've done of my fitness photo shoot prep. But this all kind of really ties into this episode of balance, because I'm not really in a season of balance right now in terms of how I am approaching this goal. And that is okay. I'm going to dive into a little bit more of that in a moment. But an update on where things are at on Christmas week. I have done 5 weeks of my photo shoot prep so far. I've been in a primer phase the entire 5 weeks. So I've been eating around my maintenance calories. And if you tuned in to the last Level Up series episode, you would have heard that my calories actually got bumped up by 100. So despite increasing my calories by 100 over the last week, I went from around 2,200 to now 2,300. Nothing has changed in terms of my physique. I have not gained weight. I have not got any leaner either. I have really just kind of focused on staying the same. And that is a win for where I'm at right now. I have been feeling really good in my training. My measurements have all stayed stable, which is amazing. I've been feeling so well fueled. I have enjoyed a couple of really nice meals out. And because everything has been going so well, my coach has given me more flexibility for Christmas week, which is awesome. And I am going to be having 2 untracked days around Christmas. And then I'm going to be focusing on hitting my targets, but just sticking to mainly calories and protein on a couple of days around Christmas, and getting back into my meal plan on the Saturday and Sunday, and also focused on my meal plan on today and yesterday. And because everything's just going so well, I'm just in a great rhythm. There's nothing to change. And this is something that I also hope you really kind of hear from all the things that I'm sharing in this photo shoot prep. It really is about just doing the foundations on repeat over and over and over, training hard, training effectively, getting your steps in, focusing on mostly whole foods, drinking loads of water, getting enough protein in, sleeping well, and rinse and repeat. And that is all you need to do, but in a way that is actually tailored to your body for the results that you want. So let's dive into balance and the art of finding it. And the reason that I've called this episode The Art of Balance is to help you see it with an attitude of play and experimentation. Because in doing so, we can actually have fun with it. Because I know for so many years, I feel like I was just kind of swinging from one extreme to the other. I was so restrictive. Then I was just all or nothing. And I was just kind of like found the whole thing incredibly stressful. I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. I didn't feel particularly good. I wasn't enjoying it when I was really restricted. I wasn't enjoying it when I was really like lacking balance or anything like that either. When I was in that kind of like all or nothing swing, I wasn't enjoying either end of the spectrum. And when someone kind of says, okay, well, don't be all or nothing, then how do we actually do that? How do we actually kind of like find that in between? And the first thing I want to share about it is that balance is a skill. Maintenance is a skill. And that really is the kind of like best phase to practice balance in, first of all, is maintenance, when it really is about trying to find a balance between fueling yourself well, staying on track with your goals, prioritizing your health, but still enjoying some flexibility with your social life that also enables you to live your life in the way that you want. And by thinking about it as an art, we get to see it in a more playful way that can allow us to play in that in between and to experiment, because one person's version of balance is not the same as the next person's. And we need to discover what that actually is and what that looks like for us. And then the next layer to this is that it's also going to change depending on the season that you're in. And so your version of balance right now might be learning to balance enjoying some more flexible and fun foods while still achieving your goals, to prove to yourself that you don't need to be mega restrictive. Your version of balance might be making sure that you are still training hard while you are also enjoying a more vibrant social life. And your version of balance might also look different to the person who's got a different set of goals to yours right now. So if balance ever feels hard, if that kind of learning how to not be all or nothing feels hard, it's just because you need more practice at it. And just like anything in life, if we want to get better at something, we have to practice it and we have to put in the reps. Just like you can't get stronger if you don't practice, like lifting weights and increasing the weight and the reps on the bar. If you want to get better at nutrition, you need to learn about it. You need to focus on getting the reps of figuring out which nutrition works for you and your body and your goals. I always recommend tracking as well so that you can actually learn the nutritional values of different foods. Everything is a skill when it comes to your body transformation. And just like if all or nothing is something that you have practiced a lot at and you would have got good at, balance isn't just something that you can just magically just switch on like, oh, now I'm being balanced. It's like, we have to learn what that is and what actually allows you to keep the results that you want or to get the results that you want. And this is the next part of it. What you think you want balance to look like might actually be different to what it needs to look like for the result that you want. For example, I think so many people think maintenance is just a free-for-all. Maintenance is where I just get to do whatever I want. And I have seen enough people not maintain, so therefore they're not in maintenance, to know that, again, maintenance is a skill, and learning to find a level of balance that actually allows you to maintain is part of that skill. And I always like to talk about maintenance as intentional maintenance, because then it gets us to, again, think about, well, we need to actually put some effort into this. It doesn't just magically happen. And the way that I view balance as well, when it comes to my own health and fitness goals, is that depending on the season that I'm in, depending on the phase that I'm in, nutrition-wise, will depend on the level of balance that's required. So for example, if I am in long-term maintenance, then I generally kind of go for about an 80% whole food to 20% soul food split. I'm not really anal about how I'm figuring out that 80-20. I just am generally kind of thinking, okay, most of the time, pretty much all the meals that I kind of like cook myself, I want it to be mostly whole foods. And then I want to enjoy a little bit of soul foods across my week. For me, that tends to look like I enjoy it when I go out for my like meals to eat at the weekend with my husband, which I do much more of when I'm working on when I'm in maintenance than when I'm working on a specific goal. And I enjoy having some more freedom with what I choose there. But then when I'm focused on making meals at home, I'm much more intentional with what I'm including in there and prioritizing whole foods. And that to me is a great level of balance. Sometimes though, depending on the goal that you have, the phase that you're in, you might need to dial up the level of whole foods versus soul foods. For example, whenever I'm in fat loss, I really want to dial up the amount of whole foods that I'm having to about a 90 to 95% to 5 to 10% split. This is so that I'm giving my body enough nutrients and focusing on eating enough voluminous food and making sure I am still hitting my targets and feeling good off and satiated off the food that I have when the calories are reduced. But because fat loss is a phase, it's not a lifestyle. You're not meant to be in fat loss like for an entire year, for example. It's meant to be a dedicated phase. It's okay if you need to dial up that restraint in that season. And so we might think, oh, well, balance to me looks like just having as many drinks as I want at the weekend, eating out all the time, just grabbing lunch every day of the week when I'm at the office because that's just easier. But if that's not actually giving you the physique that you want, the feeling that you want in your body, then I personally would argue that that's not a level of balance that actually is working in alignment for the result that you want. And so that's where it is a skill and an art to actually start to refine it and figure, okay, so if I have this many alcoholic drinks, does that give me the result that I want? Is that actually helping me sleep well? Is that actually helping me feel good? Or is that actually too much in one direction? Or if, for example, you end up completely being like, right, I don't want to have any chocolate whatsoever. I'm going to never have chocolate again. Then we're starting to swing in the other direction of it being something that feels rigid and so extreme and unable to stick to, that creates tension around it. And this was something that I just stopped doing quite a few years ago. I stopped swearing off things for life. I stopped, completely like restricting things. And in doing so, I actually found balance with them. Like sometimes I do enjoy an ice cream. Sometimes I do like to have a pizza. I definitely like to have a burger and chips when I'm out quite regularly when I'm in maintenance, but not in a fat loss phase. And so across the year, I end up having a very balanced and enjoyable relationship with whole foods versus soul foods. But that doesn't mean that I'm not more restrained when I'm in certain phases. And so for the last 2 years, coming back to where I'm at with my own goals right now, for the last pretty much like 2 years, I have spent most of those 2 years in maintenance, living my best maintenance life. I have traveled loads with Joe, my husband. We have spent time living in different European countries. We went on a nomad trip. We were living in Portugal, Romania, and where else did we go? Serbia, Albania. And we've moved back and forth between the UK and England. And I was enjoying all sorts of different foods when I was doing that and really not saying no to anything. I actually did still have some periods where I wasn't drinking alcohol because I just like to do that occasionally. And then I was having times where I was having a couple of drinks. And across those couple of years, I have had an amazing amount of balance. But I have backed that up with being mega consistent with my foundations during that time. So I have barely missed a training session. I was doing 3 training sessions a week for 2 years. And now I've just started doing 4 sessions a week with weights, doing this photo shoot prep. But like I said, for 2 years, I was doing like 3 sessions a week, but I barely missed one of them. I always drink water, plenty of water every single day. I generally have really good sleep habits, and that's something that fortunately has not been an issue for me, but I've also done the work to maintain it. And a lot of meals that I could control were mostly whole foods. I eat enough protein every single day. And so I was able to balance out all of that enjoyment of the things that I just mentioned in those travels and living my best maintenance life. I was eating a lot of calories, like pretty much consistently eating between like 22 to 2,400 calories for like 2 years. And in doing so, I feel like I've had such a great balance with things, but I've also made progress with my goals because of that consistency that backed it up. And I was able to build muscle in those 2 years because I have not been trying to live in fat loss for a start. And so now though, I'm going into this photo shoot prep, or I have started it. I'm 5 weeks in, and even though the first 5 weeks have been focused on maintenance, I'm in a primer phase and I'm eating 2,300 calories right now every single day. The level of balance has definitely changed, and that is okay because I am working towards a specific goal and I don't feel like I have deprived myself of so many things for so long that the idea of being a bit more restrained right now feels awful. In fact, I feel so ready for it and so excited for it because I've just had a season in my life where I have just been enjoying loads of different things. But for me to get a different result, I needed to take some different actions. And because I will never ever say like, oh, I'm never going to eat that again. I'm never going to, have chocolate again. I'm never going to do whatever again. Like, I just don't think that way anymore. I know that after this photo shoot prep, I will bring back a level of balance and I will not swing the other way, but I will enjoy my maintenance life again of having a bit more kind of like flexibility with eating out and some of the choices that I make. And during this 7 months that I'm committing to this prep, I am very happy to be more restrained, and my goal requires that I am, and that is okay. And still, even then, because I'm in a primer phase right now and I'm on 2,300 calories, my body's responding really well, I still am eating 2 meals out a week on average. 1 to 2, like some weeks it has just been 1, but I went out for a Sunday roast, the Sunday just gone, fit that into my calories for the day easily, still hit my protein target. On the Friday, I was out for a 3-course dinner with 16 friends for like a Christmas meal. And I didn't have the dessert, but I had like the 2 first courses. I didn't drink, but I was there with the meal. I had, I didn't drink alcohol. I had some soft drinks and I still had a great time. But that is a level of balance that I'm including still right now, even in this photo shoot prep. But when I go into the fat loss phase, I will be dialing up my restraint even more because, again, the level of result that I'm looking for with this goal is more advanced and it's going to require some more advanced actions from me. But it doesn't mean that I am then going to be maintaining those level of actions and restraint after I've achieved the goal. I will be then bringing in some more balance then. And so the first thing I want you to kind of think about with your own goals is that there really is a time for more balance and there are times for less, and that is okay. It doesn't have to just be this like balance 24/7, 365 days of the year. And this, like I said, is a trap that I fell into. I was so scared of being more restrained and a bit more veering into something extreme because I had such a negative relationship when I was younger, and I did take it all came from such a negative place when I was younger. But now I am in such a positive space with my relationship with food, with my relationship with exercise, with my approach of goals, and I am ready for dialing things up a notch here, but it's coming from such a positive space that I really am excited for it. And I know that at the end of it, I will be reintroducing the balance again. So times for more balance tend to be things like maintenance phases. If you are in a intentional maintenance phase, you should be on a decent amount of calories, whichever is obviously the right amount of calories for you, your body composition, and your level of activity. But enjoying some more balance in those times, that is the time. We shouldn't be trying to live in fat loss forever. If life is already stressful, then we don't want to be trying to be really, really restrained and trying to work on fat loss. It's like a terrible time to be doing that. If you are focused on building sustainable habits, then practicing balance is going to be a part of that. And then after achieving a specific goal, bringing back in a level of balance that allows you to keep the results is also going to be part of the journey. But then there are times that is going to be required for less balance and more restraint. And that is definitely in a fat loss phase. Like a fat loss phase, if you want it to be as efficient as possible and as effective as possible, that is not a time to try and bring in as much balance as possible. That doesn't mean that you have to go to that extreme and be super restricted. That is, again, the art of balance. For example, for all of the clients that I work with, they're all what we kind of call lifestyle clients. So they're looking to achieve a great result, but they are still looking for the most part to, get on with their life while they're doing it and still maintain their social life and things like that. And so the guidelines I always give them for the best results in fat loss is, okay, you can most likely, depending on the choices that you're making when you're out, still eat out once to twice a week while you're in fat loss. You can still focus on having, 1 to 2 drinks a week, ideally not every week, but you can definitely do that occasionally in a fat loss phase and still get good results. You can include things like, some chocolate, or whatever your favorite food is. You can do that intentionally and strategically to help you stay consistent enough to follow the fat loss phase through to the end, as long as you are focusing on the needle movers alongside it. such as making sure you're hitting your calorie target, getting enough protein, all the things that I've just mentioned, but staying in a deficit through getting your movement in, training hard, still making sure you're retaining muscle by doing your weightlifting through that process. You can include those little pockets of balance, but try and do too much and it will jeopardize your results because it will most likely put you out of a calorie deficit. And so that is a time for less balance and more restraint, but don't take that as meaning that it has to be so restrictive that you're just white knuckling it through to the end. There can also be a time for less balance if you are trying to break an old pattern. And if you are working on something with a deadline. For example, I am going to be working on this photo shoot with a hard deadline. And just like if a bodybuilder was trying to get on stage, they're not kind of like trying to weave in balance to their prep to allow them to still eat out and to still drink alcohol. That's not a time for balance because they have a very specific goal with a deadline that actually requires them to get an elite condition. And what I'm doing is something similar to that, but just not quite at that advanced level. It's kind of just slightly down from that. And so for me as well, there's not going to be a lot of balance when I get into the fat loss phase, and that's okay. But sometimes if you're trying to break an old pattern, if you're trying to really kind of like interrupt a habit, sometimes you need to stop trying to be balanced with it and you need to just go all in on it to really kind of disrupt that behavior. For example, I know myself, if I ever kind of felt like I was a bit, addicted with sugar, for example, then just trying to eat less of it doesn't really work for me. I would much rather cut out as much of it as possible from my diet. And I'm talking about refined sugar here. So, I still eat loads of fruit and like things like that. But if I cut out, if I was eating lots of chocolate or like some of that like sweet popcorn or like anything like that, if I just cut it out, I know that after like about a week, I just don't even want it anymore. And so having that kind of like more structure, more restraint really kind of helps me break that pattern. That tactic doesn't work for everyone, but it does for me. And so that's another example of if I was just trying to be balanced and then gradually, slowly cut it out, it wouldn't have had as good an effect as if I did that other way that I know works. And sometimes we need more structure to allow us to really solidify the habits that we want to maintain as our foundation, to then bring more balance into it. Like kind of have that level of structure, have that level of focus to then, once you kind of got those foundations solid, to then allow yourself to gradually bring it in. Again, I think where a lot of people trip up is that they swing so far to one extreme, swearing off things like chocolate, swearing off, I'm never going to miss a workout again. I'm never going to eat that again or whatever. And they white knuckle it and it's got so much tension around it that they break and go off the deep end versus going all in on really kind of like nailing your foundations and then not pushing it to this extent that you end up kind of hitting a breaking point, but just doing it in a way that's first of all set up in a routine that you can generally stick to for long enough, and then bringing little things in to allow yourself to experiment with a level of balance that actually allows you to stay on track long term. For example, I have plenty of clients who have a couple of pieces of chocolate every day because that actually helps them stay consistent long term. For me, my kind of version of balance was always more, I want to eat kind of pretty much whole foods like the majority of the time I'm making things myself, but then I will go out to eat and I will enjoy that level of kind of 80-20 split there. So sometimes we need to balance out. If we're going to be a bit more flexible with our nutrition, we want to really kind of make sure we're staying consistent with our training and our steps. And so it's not just about being balanced with everything all the time. It's about kind of knowing when to push on one thing and when to pull back on the other, and how to start seeing your year in a way that allows you kind of that spectrum of balance rather than it just being something that is always on. And this is actually quite interesting when I look back on the Christmas meal that I went on last year with my group of friends in London. Last year, I was in my kind of just living my best maintenance life. Like I said, plenty of calories, wasn't particularly working towards a really specific goal other than generally build more muscle, and I was giving myself plenty of time to do it. And I had a look at my food diary from last year because I was tracking that as well. And on that day, I had the 3-course meal with my friends. I had a couple of drinks, a couple of glasses of wine. On that day, I had like 3,200 calories. Very normal if you're going to be going out for that kind of meal, for that to be consumed across the day. And I maintained all the way through my Christmas period. It was completely fine. But this year, because I'm working on a different goal, I am working, like I said, towards this photo shoot. I'm in a primer phase. I'm still in maintenance, but I'm being more dialed in. I stuck to my calorie goal of 2,300, and I went to that meal and I didn't drink alcohol and I didn't have the dessert. And I made some different choices of the food that I did order on that meal to be able to stay more focused on my goal this time. So I was being more restrained this year, but last year I had more balance. And so we also need to just think about that whole picture over that year to allow ourselves to kind of know when to dial it up and when to dial things back. And that's really the biggest thing that changed for me, rather than it just having to be one way all the time, allowing myself to kind of like know when to kind of go a bit more and pull back without it being that all or nothing extremes. So to bring it back to some things for you to consider at the end of this, how to know what balance you might need right now for your goals. The questions to ask yourself are this: are you getting the results that you want? If you are, then there's a good chance that level of balance is serving you, and that's all good. If it's not, then start to have a think about, well, what do your goals require right now? Is it actually a season of pulling back and allowing yourself to focus more on recovery, or focus on maintenance, or focus on fueling yourself, or learning to have a bit more of a healthier relationship with food where you can include your favorite foods? Or is it that you actually need to dial things in a bit more to be able to focus on fat loss, if that's a goal for yours? Maybe not on Christmas week, but going into the new year. Or what is it that you need to focus on dialing up if you're not getting the results that you want? And again, think about the phase that you're in. If you are focusing on fat loss, you're going to need to be more restrained than if you're in maintenance. If you're focusing on building muscle, then there's some things that are going to be really needed to be dialed in, even if you have got your calories up to a decent amount. And then have a think about, what does your life require right now? Are you going through a period of high stress, or are you in a period where you can focus on dialing things in that little bit more? Always come back to, are the results getting you what you want? And if not, then there is something that needs to shift, but it doesn't mean you need to be more restrained. Sometimes it is about pulling back to be able to go forward. And for me, for example, balance on this Christmas week looks like having a couple of untracked days over Christmas. I'm going to really enjoy that time with my family. I am not going to drink alcohol because I've made that commitment. I'm not going to drink alcohol for this entire prep, and I'm feeling very strong on that. I'm very good about it, so I'm excited. I've got some non-alcoholic beers and 0% gin and light tonic that I'm going to be enjoying across those couple of days. Going out for a Christmas lunch tomorrow with my family. I'm going to enjoy whatever it is I want on the menu. And over Christmas Day, I'm going to enjoy the full lunch. I'm going to enjoy some dessert. But the balance on my day for Christmas Day is going to look like, I'm still going to go and do some steps. I'm still going to drink plenty of water. I'm not going to drink because that's my choice. And I'm going to eat until I feel satisfied, but not overdoing it. And that is something that I've practiced a lot over the years, because I used to be absolutely awful at being able to stick to that goal. So like I said, coming back to really the first point, it is a practice. And if you choose to see it as a practice, you can start to put it into effect this week and allow yourself to explore what balance might look like to you across Christmas. Because also for me, once I've gone past Christmas Day, Boxing Day, I am going out actually for lunch, but in all the meals around it, I'm going to focus on just getting back into my routine. And then Saturday and Sunday, I'm just going to carry on with my routine as well. And that is what balance looks like to me across the whole week. So I hope that's given you some things to think about. And I would love to hear what landed for you, if that has helped you kind of explore some different things in your journey. You can send me a DM on Instagram at Kathy Morton Fitness. I hope you have a fantastic Christmas if you are listening to this on Christmas week, and I will look forward to speaking to you on the next episode.